At exactly 9:15 a.m. this morning, Friday, May 22nd, 2026, the internal atmosphere at Clarence House shifted from tense to clinical. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, did something that palace insiders are calling a declarative snub. He refused a direct request to join Queen Camilla for a private breakfast. This was not a scheduling conflict. This was a message. While the public watches the headlines regarding the king's health, a much more dangerous game is being played behind the heavy oak doors of Room 1844. A document has just been leaked from the Cabinet Office, a dossier marked with the highest level of sensitivity. It is titled the Regency Protocol 2026. This is not just a contingency plan. It is a blueprint for the systematic dismantling of the current power structure. And at the very top of the redundant personnel list sits the name of the Queen herself. Let that sink in. For the first time in modern history, we are looking at the documented intent to erase a sitting queen consort from the future of the crown. The reason cited in the leaked files points back to a single devastating fracture point in November 2022, the public humiliation of Lady Susan Hussey. Before we go further into these leaked documents, if you want to stay ahead of the narrative the palace is trying to control, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is breaking news that will change how you see the monarchy forever. Drop a comment below with the word protocol if you believe the Prince of Wales has the right to choose his own inner circle. According to the leaked Regency Protocol, the authority being exercised by William is rooted in Article 12 of the Succession and Regency Code. This specific clause allows the Prince of Wales, acting as the de facto architect of the next reign, to review the institutional viability of all household members. The document suggests that William is not merely preparing to be king. He is actively purging the influence of those he deems a threat to the monarchy's survival. Earlier today, a staff member within the prince's household reportedly described the confrontation. Queen Camilla had requested a meeting to discuss the continuity of her staff. William's response, relayed through his private secretary, was reportedly ice cold. He said, and I quote, "The time for discussing staff loyalty ended 3 years ago. We are now in the phase of implementation. My mother's memory and my godmother's service are not up for negotiation." To understand why this is happening today on May 22nd, 2026, we have to look at the mechanism of erasure, detailed in the leaked files. How does one remove a queen? It happens in 3 calculated steps. Step 1. The administrative freeze. This began when William gained oversight of the Duchy of Cornwall and started scrutinizing the Queen's private expenditures. Step 2. The social isolation. By refusing today's breakfast, William has signaled to the entire royal court that Camilla is no longer a power broker. Step 3. The legal strike. This is where Article 12 comes in, providing the legal framework to transition her title to Queen Dowager, a title with no budget, no staff, and no public platform. The dossier reveals that the Prince of Wales has never forgiven the events of late 2022. For 6 decades, Lady Susan Hussey was the institutional memory of the crown. She was the woman who sat beside the late Queen Elizabeth in her most private moments. Yet, during a reception hosted by Camilla, she was cast out in less than 24 hours. The leaked documents now suggest this wasn't an accidental gaffe. Investigative notes within the Regency Protocol describe it as a sanctioned reputation hit, a move by the new Queen's office to clear out the old guard and consolidate power. But Camilla made a fatal error. She underestimated the man who would one day hold the keys to her future. William didn't just watch his godmother be humiliated. He observed, he recorded, and he waited. Today's leak is the first shot in what is being described as a war of the households. The Cabinet Office is reportedly in a state of panic, attempting to trace the source of the leak, but the damage is done. The Regency Protocol 2026 is now a matter of record. The countdown for Camilla's exit has officially begun, and the deadline is closer than anyone imagined. Stay with me, because what we found in the next chapter of this dossier is even more explosive. The 2022 scandal was not a lapse in judgment. It was a sacrificial play. But as the Prince of Wales showed us at 9:15 this morning, he has his own receipts, and he is finally ready to present them. The question is no longer if Camilla will be erased, but how fast? What else is hidden in the prince's dossier? The next revelation involves a secret meeting Efficiency of the Regency Protocol currently unfolding in May 2026. We must forensically reconstruct the crime scene where the first domino fell. 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. The picture gallery at Buckingham Palace. The air was heavy with the scent of Earl Grey and the hushed tones of high society diplomacy. This was Queen Camilla's moment, her first major solo engagement as queen consort, a reception focused on the prevention of sexual violence and conflict. It was designed to be a triumph of modern soft power. Instead, it became a social execution. In the center of the room stood Lady Susan Hussey. At 83 years old, she was the walking embodiment of the British monarchy's old guard. She was not a woman who made mistakes. She had navigated the turbulence of the Princess Diana years, the fire at Windsor, and the departure of the Sussexes with surgical precision. And yet, within minutes, her 60-year career was incinerated. The transcript of her conversation with Ngoy Falani, the founder of Sister Space, reads like a coordinated interrogation. According to the reported account, Lady Hussey approached Falani, moved her hair to see her name badge, and began a sequence of 3 persistent questions. Where are you from? Where do your people come from? And finally, I can see I'm going to have a challenge getting you to say where you're from. To the casual observer, it was a generational gaffe. To the investigative team reviewing the Regency Protocol today, it looks like a tactical ambush. Here is the PR mechanism that the palace has never publicly explained. How does a woman with 6 decades of diplomatic training, the same woman who was tasked with teaching Meghan Markle the intricacies of royal protocol, suddenly lose all sense of situational awareness? The answer lies in the guest list. Newly unearthed memos from the Lord Chamberlain's office reveal a frantic reshuffle of the guest list at exactly 1,400 hours that day, just 3 hours before the doors opened. Names were added that Lady Hussey had not been briefed on. She was deployed into a crowd of high-profile activists without the standard briefing dossier usually provided to the household staff. Even more chilling is the testimony involving Princess Anne. Internal reports suggest the Princess Royal noticed a strange atmosphere early in the evening. She reportedly leaned in and whispered a cryptic warning to Lady Hussey. "The air is thin today, Susan. Watch your step. This isn't our floor anymore." Princess Anne knew. She saw the shift in the palace architecture. By the time the clock struck midnight, the narrative was already out of the palace's control. The social media firestorm was instantaneous, but it's the speed of the palace's response that raises the most red flags. In the high-stakes world of royal PR, investigations usually take weeks. Evidence is weighed. Statements are drafted and redrafted. Yet, in the case of Lady Hussey, the guilty verdict was delivered in less than 24 hours. By Wednesday morning, the woman who had served Queen Elizabeth through every crisis of the 20th century was being escorted out of the palace. No hearing, no appeal, no mercy. It was a record-breaking termination. But who benefited from the immediate vacuum created by Hussey's departure? The leaked documents from 2026 suggest that the Hussey incident wasn't just a scandal. It was a stress test for a new kind of power. And while the world focused on the racism allegations, a much more clinical operation was happening in the background, the total replacement of the Queen's inner circle. If this was a trap, the bait was taken. But as we look at the Prince of Wales's current movements today, it appears the old guard left behind one final hidden asset, a piece of information that wasn't supposed to survive the 2022 purge, one that is currently sitting on William's desk. The leaked Regency Protocol of May 22, 2026 doesn't just list names. It outlines a chillingly effective strategy for institutional takeover. To the public, the changes within the palace over the last few years looked like modernization. But to those who study the architecture of power, it was something far more clinical. Analysts call it the natural erasure, a 4-step process designed by the Queen's office to dismantle the legacy of Elizabeth II and replace it with a new consolidated guard. Here is exactly how the mechanism works, as revealed in the current Cabinet Office dossier. Step 1. The abolition of tradition. Within weeks of the late Queen's passing, Camilla initiated a quiet but seismic shift. She officially abolished the ancient role of lady-in-waiting. For centuries, this wasn't just a job. It was a position of unparalleled proximity to the monarch held by the highest-ranking aristocrats who knew served Elizabeth for decades. Step 2. The restructuring. In place of the ladies-in-waiting, Camilla introduced the Queen's companions. This was not a mere branding exercise. This new role was defined by a different set of loyalties and, crucially, a different reporting structure. By creating this new tier, the Queen consort was able to handpick an inner circle that owed their positions entirely to her. Bypasses the traditional vetting processes of the old guard. Step 3. Institutional isolation. The women who had served the previous queen, the keepers of the crown's institutional memory, were not fired immediately. That would have caused a scandal. Instead, they were moved into ceremonial roles with grand titles, but zero actual influence. They were honored, but they were no longer in the room where decisions were made. They were effectively ghosted within their own palace. Step 4. The activation of the fracture point. This is where the Lady Susan Hussey incident becomes the ultimate case study. The protocol suggests that the palace now looks for unforced errors, minor gaffes, or cultural disconnects that can be framed as unacceptable in a modern society. Once an error occurs, the machine triggers an immediate permanent exit. The data found in the archives of the Royal Victorian Order provides the smoking gun for this theory. Records from late 2022 show that at exactly 1,100 hours on December 1st, less than 48 hours after the incident at the reception, Lady Hussey's digital and physical access to the restricted household folders was terminated. There was no transition period, no handover of her 60 years of knowledge. It was a digital exile signed off by the highest levels of the new administration. But there is a flaw in this kind of surgical removal. When you erase the institutional memory of a palace, you create a vacuum. The leaked regency. Protocol suggests that while Camilla was busy erasing the old guard, she was inadvertently creating a shadow cabinet of displaced loyalists. These individuals, led by figures like Lady Hussey, didn't disappear. They simply shifted their allegiance. They began to feed their decades of knowledge, their secrets, and their observations of the new Queen's methods to the one person who could eventually override everything, the Prince of Wales. As of 9:15 this morning, the natural erasure has backfired. The Prince is now using the exact same four-step mechanism, but he has turned the lens toward the Queen herself. The most dangerous part of the dossier isn't what Camilla did to Hussey. It's what Hussey told William in the aftermath. And the documents suggest that the most explosive secret of the 2022 incident has yet to be made public. What if the conversation that ended Hussey's career wasn't overheard by accident? What if it was recorded by a device that wasn't supposed to be in the room? To understand the gravity of the Regency protocol leaked this morning, we have to follow the paper trail. A timeline is not just a list of dates. It is a map of a 66-year strategic play. The dossier currently circulating in the Cabinet Office reveals 6 specific milestones that explain why the Prince of Wales is moving with such cold precision. Today, May 22, 2026. The first milestone, January 1960. Buckingham Palace. A young Susan Hussey enters the royal household. She wasn't just a staff member. She became the living memory of the institution. She saw the rise and fall of every major figure for over 6 decades. She was the one who briefed the newcomers and guarded the secrets of the bloodline. She was the ultimate insider. Fast forward 61 years to the second milestone. April 21st, 2021. Windsor Castle, the day of Prince Philip's funeral. The image remains burned into the public consciousness. The late Queen Elizabeth sitting alone in the chapel, isolated by pandemic restrictions. But the dossier reveals a detail from the car ride to that service, sitting beside the Queen in the most intimate and painful moment of her long reign, was not a member of her family, but Lady Susan Hussey. This was the peak of her trust. She was the only person allowed into the Queen's final circle of grief. Then comes the breaking point. November 29th, 2022, London. The Inozi Fani incident. Within 24 hours, the woman who sat beside the Queen at her husband's funeral was stripped of her role and escorted from the palace. The speed of himself, William preserved his own political capital, allowing him to operate in the shadows to protect Hussey's long-term interests. He wasn't abandoning her. He was shielding the counter-operation. The counter-strike became visible in February 2023. St. James's Palace. In a move that sent shockwaves through Queen Camilla's office, Princess and the Princess Royal, quietly reinstated Lady Hussey to represent her at an official memorial service. This was the first open shot fired by the old guard against the new administration. It signaled that the royal bloodline, led by and in William, did not recognize the validity of the 22 purge. This leads us to the final milestone. Today, May 22nd, 2026. The Regency Protocol reveals the final evolution of this 60-year trajectory. Lady Susan Hussey is no longer a retired aide. She is documented as the senior strategic advisor to the Prince of Wales's private office. The documents suggest she has spent the last 3 years codifying her 60 years of institutional knowledge into a manual for William's reign, a manual that explicitly details how to manage and limit the influence of Queen Camilla. The circle is closing. The woman Camilla tried to erase in 2022 has become the architect of the protocol that will define the Queen's future, but there is one detail in the timeline that remains unexplained. A meeting that took place in the early hours of this morning involving a courier from the Royal Archives and a set of keys that haven't been used since the 1990s. What is in the vault that Lady Hussey just opened? For the Prince of Wales. The leaked Regency Protocol of May 22nd, 2026 contains a section that palace analysts are calling the scenario tree. This is not a mere brainstorming exercise. It is a clinical assessment of how the Prince of Wales intends to manage the Queen Consort when the inevitable transition of the crown occurs. The dossier outlines 3 distinct paths, each progressively more calculated than the last. The first path, labeled the Highland exile, is the most severe. Under this scenario, William would invoke the full weight of the royal prerogative to strip the title of Queen Consort. Immediately upon his accession, Camilla would be legally designated as Queen Dowager, the widow of the late king, and relocated permanently to a remote estate, likely Birk Hall in Scotland. Her public profile would be reduced to 0, her patronages reassigned, and her presence at state events terminated. While satisfying for those seeking a dramatic reckoning, he can remove Camilla's power without ever firing a single public shot. As the Prince of Wales continues to refuse private meetings with the Queen today, it is becoming clear which path he has chosen. The silent erasure is no longer a scenario on a page. It is an active operation. But there is one variable that even this clinical dossier cannot fully account for. In the basement of Clarence House, there is a set of personal archives that Camilla has guarded for 30 years. If she realizes the door is closing, will she go quietly, or will she release the final fracture document that Lady Hussey has been trying to suppress since the 1990s? As the clock strikes midday on this Friday, May 22nd, 2026, the most chilling detail of the Regency Protocol has moved from a digital file to a physical reality. At exactly 10:45 a.m., a black armored SUV registered to the Prince of Wales's private estate was spotted entering the side gates of Kensington Palace. A man identified as William's personal legal counsel was seen carrying a single weathered iron box. This is the detonator that the palace has spent the last 4 years trying to locate. For decades, rumors circulated within the royal archives about the existence of the Hussey diaries. As the woman assigned to guide a young Lady Diana Spencer through the treacherous halls of the monarchy in the early 1980s, Lady Susan Hussey didn't just witness history, she recorded it. These are not mere social observations. According to intelligence leaked from the Cabinet Office, these journals contain the unvarnished hour accounts of the breakdown of the first marriage of the king, including specific documented interventions by Camilla that were never disclosed to the public or the Parliament. This is why the events of November 29, 2022 were such a monumental miscalculation by the Queen's office. When Camilla moved to humiliate and exile Lady Hussey over a 5-minute conversation, she wasn't just removing a rival, she was breaking a 60-year vow of silence. The Regency Protocol reveals a devastating irony. As long as Lady Hussey was a part of the official household, her diaries were subject to the Official Secrets Act. But the moment she was forced to resign, the legal ownership of her personal recollections entered a gray zone. By pushing her out, Camilla effectively untied the hands of the one woman who knows where every secret is buried. The sighting of that iron box this morning suggests that the Prince of Wales has now taken possession of the ultimate leverage. The dossier indicates that William isn't just looking for historical context. He is looking for operational precedents. He is looking for proof of conduct that would make Camilla's continued status as queen consort constitutionally untenable. Under the new regency rules, consider the strategic brilliance of this movement. Camilla thought she had won the War of the Households in 2022 when Hussey was escorted from the palace in disgrace. She thought she had modernized the crown by erasing the old guard. But she forgot one fundamental rule of the British monarchy. The Prince of Wales is the godson of the woman she betrayed. And in this family, blood and god-blood run deeper than any title. As of this afternoon, the atmosphere at Buckingham Palace is reportedly one of controlled panic. There are no press releases. There are no denials. There is only the silence of an institution waiting for the other shoe to drop. The iron box is inside Kensington Palace. William has the keys, and the Regency protocol is moving into its final irreversible phase. Camilla's reign was built on a carefully managed narrative of redemption. But the Hussey Diaries represent the counter-narrative, a documented reality that the Prince of Wales is now ready to weaponize. The question is no longer whether William will protect his mother's legacy, but how he will use it to define his father's successor. The battle for the crown has moved beyond the public eye and into the vault. What is written on those yellowed pages that has the Queen's inner circle terrified? The answer is hidden in the next chapter of the Regency Protocol. This is a developing story with implications that will reshape the monarchy before the week is over. To see the full breakdown of the leaked documents and the secret history of the Hussey-Diana connection, you must be part of our inner circle. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon now. The next update contains the specific names mentioned in the Iron Box journals, names that are still active in the palace today. Do you think William is right to use these secrets to secure the throne? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. The war for the crown is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens in the next.